I think you got to be careful with that, teaching that. You guys don't actually say the name of the tour player. Come on, let's just kind of give me an idea of what these guys do. Can't measure the shoulder. And so they have to do the best they can, and what visually looks good to them, you know, now they have to, if they actually had some science to back it up, now I have this serious problem. Mike, you're not perfect, right? Using just one swing to kind of drill your point down. So what they're teaching is false doctrine. It takes forever, they're extremely expensive. It's really dangerous to make very bold claims. Yeah, dude, you gotta get some math in here. How do you know? First of all, how do you know it's not right? Are you a motion capture expert? You know, you talk a lot about the external and internal rotation of the shoulder, and no. The shoulder goes into external rotation, 15 degrees. You guys are teaching stuff that people can't do. I can't get my head around that. Like,
the images you're seeing here on the screen are screenshots that one of our AMG Plus members sent to us. He's also a member of another golf forum. This golfer, I assume he's a golfer, Goldfarb, said that we had serious flaws in our data. And he listed them out in 4 key ways. You just heard clips from Michael Neff, the founder of Gears, talk about some of those, and we're going to address those with his help, and he's mainly going to address those in this video. And this video is going to be a lot longer than our normal videos, but I figured it was time to dedicate an entire video on how our data is collected, the accuracy of the data. So when you go out and practice and when you try the things that we recommend, you know that you're actually getting the highest quality of information possible. So even though this video isn't quite our normal format, we still hope you get a lot of value from it. Mike, you've seen a lot of our videos.
Yes.
Right? We don't use averages when we collect the data. We collect all the data. We look at the standard deviation. We look at like every which way the numbers. We'll throw an offhanded comment like the tour average of whatever is X, but we don't teach in lessons with averages. You have a really cool avatar that's a tour average avatar that we've never used in a video because I think I've
never seen that in your videos.
It's good to know what real golfers are doing, and then it's good to know the averages of where we see real good golfers, and then the deviation, and then how far the expanse is.
Exactly.
So what are your thoughts on, 1, that we use averages, and 2, just that topic in general?
Yeah, so we do make a tour average, and it is I don't know, I think we have like 500 touring professionals globally now on Gears that have played in a tour event, like whether it's Asian Tour, PGA Tour, Senior Tour. I mean, there's quite a few. We've got a pretty robust database.
These aren't an average of 5 golfers.
No. So, and we're talking the best players in the world too. We're talking Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, who all have very unique golf swings. Mm-hmm. So I personally I think that the tour average is kind of just a little bit of a reference tool. Like, I think you got to be careful with that, teaching that. What it kind of does is it gives you a little bit of an idea on what the best players in the world do, kind of gives you maybe a window of where they kind of go. What I'm more interested in is the standard deviation. Like, for example, hip turn. So let's say on average, we don't see tour players turn more on the backswing than they do at impact. I'll just give you one example. So most tour players have more pelvis turn at impact than they do at the top of their swing.
We see amateurs the opposite.
Amateurs are the opposite. So if you want to call that an average, well, the average amateur, yeah, so there's going to be some amateurs that don't do that, but we're trying to build a point here. We're trying to build hey, there's something. So the standard deviation on the PGA Tour with hip turn, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 degrees either way.
Yeah, the assumption being made, or the charge being leveled is that 10 tour pros hit draws, 10 tour pros hit fades. We're saying the average tour pro hits it straight.
Yeah, that's not
what we're doing.
No, so I mean, you could say, hey, the face to path on average of every tour player that we have had is face to path open.
Right.
which it is, driver. So like I've actually done that. Well, is that valuable? Like on average, the average tour player right now is hitting a cut with their driver, and that's probably pretty accurate.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I want that standard deviation. And what we don't see a lot of is big, wild face to path ranges. And we see most tour players don't curve it very much. And so the standard deviation is very valuable. You guys have used that. I've seen that. You always, in your videos, you're always saying, hey, we've looked at the top, these are 8 tour players that have won 17 tournaments. Mm-hmm. And you always do a really cool job of that. I think it's cool that you guys don't actually say the name of the tour player, and that you're just basically just trying to, hey, look, we're just trying to show data here. So I think averages can be maybe helpful in some ways, but you have to be careful with them. I don't see you guys doing that in your videos, but I think really in my world, if you were to ask me, I think knowing the ranges is more important. But those ranges are very valuable, and those ranges don't deviate tons.
One we'll say all the time is, the average pro will move an inch, the pelvis sway will sway an inch and a half off the ball. Saying there's an inch off the ball, one, is not an actual average, right? An average is a number.
Yep.
But that variety is very, very small. Maybe 3/4 of an inch, maybe 1 3/4 inches. There's not 4 inches and minus 4 inches, and then we say an average. So if we do use the word average, it's because they're all bunched together in one group.
I think you basically have, you guys have had so much success. You make the best videos in golf. I don't know how many people have called me and said, would you please sell me a gear system and tell me how they do what they do? Because I want to do that. Like there's a lot of hundreds of people, golf professionals, want to do the quality of instruction online that you guys are doing, and I'm unique in that I'm out in the world. Mm-hmm. I'm talking to golf pros. There's we have so many inquiries every year, and I'm talking to everybody. And you guys, everybody wants to be AMG. They want to create what you're doing. And so I think what you have maybe is you have some people that, I don't know, maybe a little jealous, that like, oh, I got to poke holes at these guys. Well, really what you're trying to do is you're talking to an audience of 500,000 people or 1 million people. Right. You're trying to kind of convey, hey, look, here's your 15 handicap or a 5 handicap. We can't consider every scenario, but come on, let's just kind of give me an idea of what these guys do.
Well, I'll stick up for our fellow pros, in that I'm 99% sure this person saying this is not a professional. Yeah. He's a player who's made comments before on our channel and is a big fan of, pictures, drawing lines on pictures as a measurement. Yep. And what we're showing is in direct opposition to a lot of those things. So there's some disagreement, which is fine. I mean, we want everybody to swing however they want. Sure. But we just want to share with you what the best players do. And then you can work backwards from there if you want. So I appreciate you saying that, but we get far less of that from actual teachers who are being hired to help people improve than we are some of the zealots in whatever camp of swing theory or whatever that's out there. Confirmation bias is one that we hear a lot. How we look at this is, Sean and I have taught golf a number of years before gears was in existence. Yep. Before we ever had a gear system. Scott Hamilton, we worked with closely, one of my dearest friends and someone we consider a mentor.
Love Scotty.
Has taught golf for a long time with some of the best players in the world. We have all said, since using gears, we see how many things we got wrong prior, right? Because when you only have video, there's just a lot of things you can't accurately see. And it's helped us to see video differently, right? Because we never capture a gears swing without having the video camera running, because we want the player to be able to equate what he's seeing on gears with when he goes home and films a swing, so he can say, okay, I recognize that. We've only been making videos for a few years. We've been teaching for a lot longer than that. Yep. So we don't have a history of saying X, Y, and Z happens in a golf swing. So we've got to go out now and find data that proves X, Y, and Z. Yep. We're collecting data. You've seen the data we've collected. We've seen the data you collected. It's the same data. These players are, by and large, for most elements of the swing, doing the same thing. And we adjust what we teach based on that versus trying to say, well, we said this 15 years ago, so we better find a player, a needle in a haystack that does that.
So I think maybe it would help if I explained how we come to our data point. Maybe
that's great.
Maybe I think that's really helpful, just so that Mythbusters.
Because the example that was used was, players to have flying elbows, and we've been capturing swings long enough now that we've captured swings that have been in what you would consider every camp. Centered pivots, more stack and tilt type swings, more the opposite of stack and tilt. Like just every flying elbows, tucked elbows, we've captured them everywhere. And when you start parsing out versus what it looks like versus what's actually being done, the numbers start to get real close together.
Yeah, so let's first define how gears measures things.
Okay.
So once you understand that, then there's different technologies like the AMM system that has some metrics that are going to be similar. But what if you're like, oh, I'm using gears and gears is wrong, so that's validating so I'm teaching wrong because I'm using bad tech and bad data. I mean, that's an argument that people might say, well, they're showing all these things that tour players does, but gears is not accurate.
Right.
Or they're not measuring the torso correctly, or they're not measuring side bend correctly, or all these things. So it's like, yeah, they're just using bad tech, so what they're teaching is false doctrine.
Right.
Gears is a optical motion capture system. So it uses, there's 8 to 10 cameras depending on the volume. You guys have 10 here. But 8 to 10 cameras is what is needed to measure a golf swing, because the golf swing's turning a lot and you have a lot of markers. So the more markers you have on your body, the more cameras you're going to need to track it. Every camera, we need at least 2 cameras to see the marker at any given time. So if I had like all cameras on this side, but they would never see my back, you wouldn't do it. So it wouldn't work. So you basically have the cameras surrounding you. We're tracking the marker at 0.2 millimeters.
0.2.
That is the thickness of a piece of paper.
Okay.
Okay, so if anybody listening to this wants to have a phantom shoot off with me over our accuracy.
Now explain what that is, a phantom camera.
A phantom camera is a high-speed camera that can go up to close to 1 million frames per second. It's what research people use to validate things. It takes forever. They're extremely expensive. Like one golf swing would take almost all day to process.
Yeah, and watch.
There's no computer that would even be able to, well, maybe there is some now, but to handle 8 phantom cameras tracking a golf swing at 1 million frames per second. So this is overkill. So anyways, we use a phantom camera. So if anybody's like, gears is not accurate, I will personally fly any plane anywhere in the world with my gear set up with a phantom camera, and I am happy to prove that our marker tracking is the best in the world.
Is it as accurate as taking a YouTube video and drawing lines on the screen?
Okay, so that's the difference between 3D and 2D. Okay. So I mean, we've been looking at 2D our whole life and videos our whole life.
Still do.
And we still do.
Yep.
And one of the cool things, like I had Cam Smith, I'm on his team, and his coach Grant Field is one of my favorite human beings, and he's Australian Coach of the Year forever, just an amazing guy. And they basically is like, these are some of the best coaches and best players in the world. Like, dude, we know that we're missing some things. I know that I can't see everything on this X-ray. So 2D video is like an X-ray, 3D is like an MRI. When more data, it's very difficult to get data from a 2D flat surface. You can in 2D and you can get some renderings, but remember, it's a 3-dimensional object.
Right.
So if you're looking at it from a different angle, that is going to be, you're going to analyze something differently if you can see it from a different angle. It's really dangerous to make very bold claims with a video camera.
Yes. Which up until recently,
all of my friends,
all the concepts in
Yes.
golf are based on video.
all of my now you can make assumptions. You say, hey, look, he has some sway here. Okay, great. I'll take some assumptions. But if you're going to say, hey, he's doing that 100%, take it to the bank. I'll put my mortgage on the line for that. You might want to be careful with
Yes,
that. So
very careful.
you're basically looking, but most of the people that are reasonable, that are science minded, that are like, yeah, dude, you gotta get some math in here. You can't just guess. And because I can't afford a $30,000 optical system, or because I'm not a biomechanist, I'm going to poo-poo people that do have it because, I can't have it, or I can't afford it, or whatever. So I see a lot of that. Like people we don't get a lot of people. There's a few naysayers out there that are like, you guys aren't doing this right, or you're not doing that right, or not doing that right. And it's like, dude, how do you know? First of all, how do you know it's not right? Are you a motion capture expert?
Well,
Have
there are
have
people.
you done it?
There are people who've written books with gears images that have never turned to gears.
Yeah.
Don't own a gears.
So they, it's great for us. It gives us, they trust that. I would still tell those people even, hey, don't just believe me. Actually, let's have a math class on this. Let's figure this out, So we put the marker. So for example, we have new shoulder metrics, right? We put you talk a lot about the external and internal rotation of the shoulder, and you've gotten a lot of crap about that online. People saying, no, the shoulder goes into external rotation, 15 degrees. And they're like, well, how do you know that? Well, this guy told me that has an optical system, or the AMM system said that. But, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with a magnetic system or an optical system. So the way we capture the shoulder is we put a marker on the AC joint. We put it in the middle of the scapula and the base of the scapula, and then we have one on the tricep, the elbow, wrist. So that we're tracking this whole joint pretty freaking good, and the markers are being tracked at a very, very accurate rate, 0.2 millimeters.
Yep.
And there's no drift. So I don't have this problem of, as long as my cameras are calibrated, I'm not going to have drift where, after 3 or 4 swings, now that marker is going to start drifting.
Right.
So the benefit of optical motion capture is we know where absolute zero is. And so when we know where absolute zero is, we can get very accurate measurements on this. And quite honestly, we're probably overkill for a golf swing gears. So the AMM system was a great system, and it's a magnetic system where you basically use a point and you digitize these points. Phil Cheatham made it. It's a Polhemus system. Phil Cheatham basically designed it to be a golf system. Dr. Rob Neal also uses the Polhemus system for his stuff. And
this is for the people watching, this is the system where there's wires attached all over the body.
And most of that's because the wire's attached to the club. Mm-hmm. So no shaft movement, no face data, no ball data. But it's a reference piece. They're trying their best. I think it's actually pretty cool with the technology that they had that they try to get that. Now I gotta put a lot of stuff on me. I can't have rebar in the floor; it won't work. Every 3D system has some weaknesses in it, and so, but if you digitize those points correctly, you're going to get pretty good data. I had a very, very active user of that system who's got a lot of data tell me. I said, how many people that use that system do you think digitize the body correctly? So you have to go through and digitize each joint.
It's
right?
a process.
It's
I've
a
been
process.
on it before.
Takes a while. Takes a while to do that. Again, doing the best they can, and it's valuable. They can use that data. It'll tell you how much it's bending and turning and twisting. There's drift with that system. They don't know absolute zero, but they do have the global reference points. Great. Good for him. Like, I love that. I mean, Phil's a friend of mine, and Dr. Neal's a friend of mine. Like, those guys are smart, and they're doing their best to measure this crazy thing, the golf swing.
So true.
But my friend was telling me, he's like, I bet you there's 10% of the owners of that system that actually know how to digitize the avatar correctly, and I don't know if I want to believe that or not, but let's just say half of the users use it right or half that don't. There's probably some gears owners that aren't careful enough when they put the markers on, where you might get some interesting numbers. Now, I'm doing most of the touring captures. You guys have done a lot of touring captures with you and Scotty and Sean, and I know how careful you guys are to make sure that those points that, you know, and then, oh, what if it moves, or what if, you know, the shirt covers that up? Well, you gotta account for that. If the marker stops getting tracked, that means that the system doesn't see it, or somebody bumped the camera. All those things need to be considered. You got to calibrate it. You got to make sure that the cameras can see the markers. You want to make sure the markers don't move. Dr. Kwan puts all his markers on skin. You can do that. We have skin markers, and lots of our users own those skin markers. Done that. You can do that. Yep. It's kind of tricky to do skin markers when you're in a retail environment, because you don't want to capture golfers in their underwear at the country club.
Yes.
So, all right, well, hey, look, those, whoa. Yeah, but you know, the clothing moves, therefore, I get this a lot. Well, your clothing moves. Well, if you use the wrong size suit and it's too big, it can move. So you just make sure you use the right size suit. And we've done a lot of research on how much, so the skin actually moves independent of the joint too. So even if you use skin markers, you might have, that's one of the benefits of the AMM system, is that you're actually just digitizing the joint. The weakness of that system is that you have drift, it's complicated, and you have to make sure that you get that. So if you have drift, that means that over time, in interference, that joint's going to start moving on you, even though it doesn't. So you have that factor. So again, if you make sure that you put the markers on right, which we're very careful, and particularly with our tour players that you're telling the world about, that we make sure that those joints that they're on there and that they're not moving, and we make sure we use tight clothing, or our suit is very good, it doesn't move,
right? It is.
And we're very careful on that. So I think, like, you got to be reaching pretty hard to poke holes in how we do things.
I mean, just for our own understanding of the system and learning of the system, I think it was roughly 2 years we were using it before we ever made a video and felt confident in how we operated it. Because we didn't take it out of the box and start turning the camera on and say, this is what happens, because we'd have been way off. Right? And I look back at when we first started using it to now, and it's like, you do something for this many years, you get better at doing it.
No question.
And when you get a capture, we can look at a capture now and go, that marker moved. And you can just see it. Like you just see the numbers over and over again. And the system
you'll see the arm move or something. The system there's a tracking module will say, hey, that marker moved on you. So now you know, hey, I gotta put that marker back where it was, and I have to recalibrate, and we're good.
And my favorite way to watch the swings, again, because you've just seen them over and over again, is without the avatar, and just watch the markers.
Absolutely.
And you can see when they change colors, you know you got an issue, and you adjust.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, putting markers on or digitizing joints, I mean, it's actually a lot of work, but the payoff. Right, the payoff. Right, what's the payoff? Okay, so I gotta put some markers on your club and your body, and the payoff is now I know what you do, I know what you are, I know what you do, and I know the difference. And the gold of any analysis is the journey of how something's moving. So it's one thing to have it, hey, I do that at impact. Well, really, great, good job. What I want to know is how you got there, and I want to understand that, and I need to be able to see the club and the body at the same time. I need to see how the shaft is moving, I need to see how the head is moving, I need to see how the grip is moving, I need to see how my wrists are moving, I need to see all of that to put the pieces of that puzzle together. I mean, if I'm not, then I'm leaving so many things out. I could have perfect kinematic sequence and whiff the ball.
Miss the ball.
So if I'm teaching only kinematic sequence and I could care less on what the club is doing or the shaft is doing, I am missing a major piece of the puzzle. So that's why having body and club, we are the only ones in the world, we are the only system in the world that gives full body data, with research grade accuracy, wrist data, shoulder data, grip data, shaft data, club head data, bulge and roll with touch, where the ball touches. And we are sub-millimeter face mapping on the club head. So we're the only ones that do all that at the same time. And more importantly, the only way to actually do all those things is optical motion capture. So radar can't do it, magnetic can't do it, Markerless can't do it. So all these different types of 3D technologies that are coming out are really, they might be more convenient or maybe less expensive, easier to use.
There's a reason the system is expensive.
Dude, you want the data, you've got to pay the price.
Right.
You've got to put the work in if you want the data.
So to kind of sum this confirmation bias up, first of all, you're not going to buy 3D unless you want to know the truth, because you're going to get slapped in the face with the raw numbers.
Sure.
So it's an odd charge to levy that we have confirmation bias, but we want to understand what's really happening. The only people I know who want to understand what's really happening
like
don't care about the bias. They just want to help golfers and be more accurate. We'll just dive right into this one because this is an easy one to answer. What do you think about us either taking markers off, which the same person has said we've done in the past, or add extra markers or move markers around to get certain angles? Is that possible?
That's crazy. It actually won't even work. If you have too many markers or not enough markers, the system won't even capture.
You won't get a swing. You won't get no.
Won't even capture.
Okay.
So
that's the way it's always been.
Yeah, it's always been that way. There's no way that you can manipulate our marker set to get the numbers that you want. It won't work. It won't. You wouldn't be able to see the avatar. Now, our avatar.
Mm-hmm.
So that would not work. That's insane. That's somebody that doesn't understand our technology. Fine, fair enough. Okay. Maybe you had a bad day.
Okay.
I'm sure we all have bad days.
We all do, for sure.
The avatar, though, like we get a lot of comments and on our avatar. So the marker data is the data on the marker. So we're tracking that marker. We know where 0 is, absolute 0, and we're tracking that marker very accurately. And we're basically all the data comes from the markers, not the avatar.
Let's spend a second on this, because that, I think, is something we've done a poor job explaining, that the data doesn't come from measuring the avatar.
Yeah.
The avatar it's the most realistic looking 3D avatar, because there's a lot of robots and stick figures, but the data is coming from the sensors. Like,
sensors.
I like
correct.
turning the avatar off and watching the sensors move.
Yep. So we have experts. OptiTrack is our partner. They're the #1 motion capture company in the world. They have this exact same system is being used by NASA to measure the vibration on the space shuttle. It's been used to film Mandalorian. It's being used at hospitals to do gait analysis. It's just super accurate, a lot of different uses for it. But in golf, we're tracking that marker very accurately, and we're showing you the data on the markers. Our avatar is very helpful. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's not perfect. It's impossible to make an avatar perfect.
I think sometimes
it's impossible.
I think sometimes
not even Hollywood gets it perfect.
It's too good, because it's easy to look at the avatar, especially when the markers are turned off, and think, well, that doesn't look right. They must be getting wrong data. Right?
It's possible. I mean, we have.
Because if it's a robot,
we have a very good avatar.
Yeah.
But what I'm most proud of, honestly, is I can turn on. I could say.
Now, why didn't you use my body scan for the avatar?
Yeah. You and me both. So, like, what I'm really proud of is our artists are the experts. We are the experts in optical motion capture in the whole world. Nobody does it better than OptiTrack. #1 market share in the world by a mile, and these guys are the best in the world at it. So, if George Lucas can do it, if he likes our product,
his budget's probably bigger.
Yeah, I mean, we probably got something pretty clean there. So, but if you have, like, the avatar is really helpful in the visual aspect of gears to say, hey, look, you're doing this, and there's something about not having an avatar that's easier to see things that they can't pick up with the naked eye. However, all the data comes from the marker positions. So we've done a great job of creating an avatar. We're actually improving on it. We're doing some cool stuff with it. And the avatar is the best avatar in the industry.
By a long ways.
Yeah, it's very good. And it's high def and it's cool. And we're making improvements to it. But it's just like, it's a cool visual tool. But all your data, all these videos that you're doing, you're getting that data off the markers. You have to use our marker set or it will not
be in
capture.
the right place.
You can't mess around with that. So
Okay.
we tie that system down to where you can't even do that.
Yeah, you make it golf instructor proof.
So you can't manipulate our marker set.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
This is my favorite one, is that we misuse the technology by showing what tour players are actually doing instead of how normal golfers should do it. Wrap your head around that.
Let's see. Why don't you say that again?
The first 3 points where we were showing the bad stuff, now we're being accused of showing the real stuff. Like the example used was Rory he's actually starting to shift back towards the target early in the golf swing, but most golfers can't do that or don't know how to do that or whatever. So we should teach something else.
Okay.
Every recentering video
okay.
we do, we talk about shifting when the club's going this way, not when it's going at P2.
So that's a different thing for me. That's somebody saying you shouldn't teach the average player what the tour player does because they can't do it.
That's
Is that what we're talking about here? Is that kind of what?
I don't think so here, although that may have been what he said or was intending to say, but that we teach recentering is real simple.
Yeah.
When the club's the farthest away from the target, you can be the farthest away.
Yeah.
When the club starts to point back at the target, you just go with it.
Yep.
Right. It's not doing that at P2 or whatever.
Exactly.
We've made a dozen or more videos on that. So in that, now we're getting into silliness. But that, you bring up a good point. We like to say tour players, and the rotation example you used earlier is a great example, make the easier movements. We've actually had tour players be in here, watch the end of an AM lesson or whatever, and when the player leaves, they're like, there's no way I could do what he was doing.
Yeah.
Like the amateur swings are physically more difficult
to do.
Right. Everyone thinks it's the opposite.
There's going to be some things there, and I think that to say that like you can't, you guys are teaching stuff that people can't do, or that physically they can't do. I think there's a lot of, okay, maybe I could put it better this way. So I might not be able to move my body as fast as Rory McIlroy. I might not be able to turn as much as he does either direction, which I can't. However,
most tour players can't.
Right. However, I can mimic his hand path. I can mimic his club path. I can mimic his wrist angles.
Right.
I can turn both directions. I'm a fat 50-year-old dude that's friggin' had back surgery, yada, yada, yada. I can literally, on gears, I can move my hips the same range of motion that he does. Now, he might be able to move them more without a golf club, but he doesn't.
Right.
You know, he moves them this much and this much. And I'm like, oh, can I do that? Yep, looks like I can. I can't generate as much ground force as he can at this stage in my life, but I can mimic a lot of what these guys can do, even though I'm old, fat, and slow, and my body's broken down.
Right.
And I can't do it as fast, but anybody can get the face to path square. Anybody can have a good hand path. Anybody can have good sequence if the club's in the right spot. They might just not be able to do as much of it. So you're telling the world like, hey, look, I just need the pattern to be, I want the pattern to be simple. I want the same amount of turn here as there, or I want the hand path to lower. I want the face to be clean. You know, anybody can do that if they understood it. and they saw it, they might not be able to go back as far, but they can actually do it. So you'd be surprised, like
point.
even these old fat dudes that slice everything, if they were to slow down for 2 seconds,
right,
and like just think about it, like dude, let's do a half swing with the face here, and let's just chip a few, just to get the sequence and how the face works down. This is how Rory does it. This is how tour players do it. Many tour players do it. Anybody can do that. Anybody. I captured Cam Smith chipping yesterday.
pretty good.
Any human being can do that motion.
Right.
Now, can they do it under pressure? Can they do it with the amount of
The same feel and dexterity. Yeah.
No. That guy is freaking off the
He's
charts.
a savant, right?
Savant,
he's
right.
A Beethoven.
But can any human being get their hips to 15, torso 15, angle of attack
that
6?
motion,
Can anybody do what he does? He
that
has very
motion
little
is physically. It's like saying I can't make Steve Stricker's putting stroke.
Yeah, exactly.
You can. It's not a physically difficult thing to do.
I don't care how big or small or girl or female, whatever. I mean, anything, boy or whatever. Anybody can chip like Cam Smith, technically.
Right.
Now, you might not be able to do it under pressure, or it might take you a while to figure it out. But if you have the right bounce and you have the right action and you have the right speed and you have all the right data, anybody can do that. Anybody can.
Our personal view on this is we don't make videos for tour players.
Yeah.
They're already
Yep.
good.
Yep.
We help them, right? Like you said, when they get off, we want to see them when they're playing good, so they have that blueprint. But they're like every other golfer. They want to come in when it's not well, and then we help them get on track. But our YouTube videos, Instagram videos aren't made for tour players. We're showing things in our videos, and this is a good example. The average tour player will shift his pelvis inch and a half off the ball. Every golfer we've ever seen who came in on his own ability can move an inch and a half away from the target and 2 or 3, 4 inches towards the target.
Yep.
That's not a tour player only fitness criteria. They could rotate the same amount in the backswing as Rory. In fact, we've seen guys in their 70s try to rotate twice as much and do it as Rory. The problem is it takes them all they can do to get back to square when he's 35, 38 degrees here, 40 degrees here.
Yep.
He's rotating less, but it's more balanced versus 75 and then wanting to be 55 open. That ain't happening with anybody. So one of the hurdles we face in lessons is convincing golfers to do less to get better.
Yeah.
The less you do, the more you do.
That's
Like
a
that.
great.
Like if I don't make a big enough backswing, I'm not going to hit it far enough. Well, your 70-degree backswing turn with your pelvis is getting you square at impact, and you're giving it one of these. That's why you're not hitting it farther.
Exactly.
So we need to do 45 degrees, and let's get open, and then we can start that. Those
so
types of things.
You can match it up. You can match everything up. It's not at the same speed. I might not be able to get as big of a stretch. I might not be able to lift my arms as much. And what the average guy's doing, or your average, they're trying to do stuff that their body doesn't want them to do. But what they think is happening, they're self-diagnosing. They go on the range. They're like, okay, well, John Rahm does this, so I'm going to do that. And then they waste a half a bucket on that, and they figure that doesn't work.
And the reality is nothing's changing.
No.
They're just feeling something
Exactly.
different.
They're feeling something different. But Mr. Haverkamp can turn his hips 20 degrees this way and 20 degrees that way.
Right.
And as long as he does that and he keeps all those things together, he's going to actually hit the middle of the ball, and it's going to go straight, and it's going to go 50 yards. Where Rory would do that at a much faster, he get the same numbers with more speed.
Right.
It's still going to be face to path zero. It's still going to be center cut.
Right.
It's just going to go way farther. So I think that's an important thing that your listeners should understand, is that like, just because you can't do it as fast, doesn't mean that you can't match up the way these guys are doing. It's a match game, man. We're just trying to clean everything up. We want, if your body's working in a very efficient way, and you've got the wrist angles right, and you got the club right, anybody can hit the middle of the club face.
It'll go as fast as you can go.
Exactly, and anybody can hit a dead straight ball.
We did a little tongue-in-cheek screen in our shallowing video where like you can shallow just like Rory, just like all these tour players. If you can lift your arm up here, most every golfer can do that.
Yep.
You can do some of this,
Yep.
and if you can lower it again,
Yep.
you've got the range of motion
Yep.
needed to shallow the club.
Exactly.
It's not that golfers don't tour players don't do that to shallow the club, but it's not needed to shallow the club. That's physically much more difficult than just doing that, and that's our goal with these videos is to what you're doing is probably sometimes most cases more difficult than what they're doing.
A really good point. Make it harder.
Yes.
I see a lot of females actually struggle with this. They I don't know, maybe they somewhere, hey, I gotta get more turn on the backswing. I get more turn. I hear that all the time, more turn. They can actually turn a lot.
A lot.
So what happens is they overturn, they're so flexible, they rotate so freaking hard back. There's not enough time in the downswing to get that all back and get the club in the right spot. It's really challenging to match all that stuff up. So it's easy to explain to that when you show the best players in the world and what they do. And I think that's what's so valuable, because I can say on a video camera, that's hard to show those numbers. Like, those numbers are very valuable to people. And people are like, oh, numbers are scary. I'm a field player. This is all way too complicated, yada, yada, yada. What we're really doing is we're simplifying. Gears simplifies the golf swing.
It creates the right concept.
So now I can basically look, here's you, here's them. I'm looking at these oh, wow, I've never seen it that way before. Oh, now that makes sense. I can do that. Nobody's ever showed that to me before. Right. Okay, great. It's very hard to do that with a video camera. So, and what does that do to the club, right? How does that affect the shaft and the delivery, right? I mean, all those pieces are part of the puzzle.
It's all linked together.
That getting that data is really valuable. You can't manipulate it. That's insane. You're not doing that.
There's a trade-off for every move you make.
Absolutely.
And you can shallow, and the point of our shallowing video was those players that we looked at, as many tour winners as we've collected, none of them shallowed the club by this move.
Yeah, so that doesn't mean that some people don't.
That doesn't mean it's never been done before.
Exactly.
We see golfers every week try to do that. So we know it's out there.
We have not captured every tour player. We've got a lot, but we haven't got everybody, and it's possible you can.
Bubba, Jack, guys who let the elbow fly, we've captured a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. They're still in external rotation in the backswing. There's a lot of external rotation in the backswing. Yeah.
So I mean, I talked to a couple people after that video. So there's a few people that I really trust that I think are doing some responsible measuring, and one of them said, maybe tour players get a couple degrees of external coming down. Maybe a few guys get a little bit, but it's not that much. And then I had another guy that uses a completely different 3D system, and he said, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 degrees. And I think you're saying that we saw like very little deviation on that.
Yeah, by the time
I said, is it possible that anybody goes into 15 degrees of external rotation? Everybody, all the smart math people that I know said, no way in hell. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody couldn't do it. I mean, you could have Gumby out there doing it. We haven't measured, they haven't measured.
Everybody's externally rotated at the top.
Yep.
So you're still in external rotation even though you're internally rotating in the downswing.
And that's where I think a lot of people get confused. The other problem is that everybody that's hammering you is using a 2-dimensional video camera or a video camera. I didn't see any posts or evidence on that they're using 3D systems to measure this thing, or I'd love to see that.
No, we've seen.
Is this anecdotal information?
We've seen people, from a standard down the line video, put a dot on the elbow or a dot on the wrist, and then say, at some point in the downswing, well, this dot moved more than this dot or whatever. Like, it's just insane to try to.
You're reaching there,
You've got body turn, you've got adduction, you've got,
that shoulder,
rotation.
That shoulder joint is very
that.
unstable. It's very hard to measure. You're looking at something like, we had this discussion with one guy. It's like saying, hey, no, they actually go into side bend really early on the downswing. And I'm like, okay, dude, let's look at this from a different angle.
That's the key.
And then he's like, oh, wow. Okay, so why is that now look straight? So he was basically in forward bend.
Yes.
and from behind it looks like you're in a lot of side bend.
Yes.
But then you look from behind from this angle, and now you can see that the virtual spine's pretty straight. And that was a pretty big
You're
eye opener there. Right. So
I may
it's
not
like,
need to make my side bend video after
so
this.
that's my point. Like if you're looking at one view, it might look like there's a lot of spine tilt, but then you look at it from another angle because it's in 3D, and we're not
Yes.
used to looking at that. Like, and it's, in fairness, they're doing the best they can with the two-dimensional camera, and I think that's okay. I mean, do your best.
Again, we
but
all use
let's
cameras.
let's not have these like, hey, you're wrong, you're an idiot, we're gonna have a fight over this, and
Right.
this is silly. You know, like, let's ask questions. Let's have this dialogue. This is, you know, every system has different reference frames, so let's kind of like, let's tamper the craziness.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
let's just like, look, let's actually use some data and some math. Let's figure out all
Let's
the pieces.
measure more swings.
Let's put
if
the
you got a
pieces of the
player-
puzzle out there. Let's put it together. Let's
We've-
not make these crazy.
We've had a lot of coaches bring their
Items.
players in. If you got a player that does exactly what you want him to do in your lessons, get him measured.
Yeah,
Let's see what he actually does. If he's doing to the T, great.
yeah,
Like, that's good information to
Yeah.
know. But if you know, I think Manzella's got the best saying. There's what a coach tells someone to do. There's what the player thinks he was told to do. Then there's what the player's actually doing.
yeah, I do. Yeah,
Right, and rarely are those three the same.
yeah,
We get this comment all the time from golfers. It's like, well, why can't instructors agree on everything? Well, because very few instructors are measuring,
Yep.
and the ones who measure are going to differ from the ones who are just looking at video.
Yep.
And then there's some instructors that won't use video; they just trust their eyes. So
Yep.
we all have different frames of reference.
Yep.
Those aren't going to line up with those
Yep.
three versions.
I'm fortunate because I get, most of our owners are top 100 instructors. You know, most of our owners are very serious about measuring, and they want the best of the best. And so we've been fortunate that way. We've had a lot of really good pros. So I get the honor of working with coaches like, I'm not even going to name them because I'm going to offend somebody. So, but like top
Yes.
instructors in the world,
Yes.
right? You know, best of best. And so I get in these circles, so I hear a lot of these things. Hey, you know, you need to shallow the club by pushing the handle out. Pushing the handle out shallows the club. So we make a lot of these statements when we don't really know all of the pieces of that puzzle.
Right.
So there is no free, there's no promise, there's no guarantee that if I push on the downswing, if I push the handle out, that is going to make the shaft more horizontal.
No, we've got a lot of swings on the computer here that do the opposite.
And the same is true for, just because I lower the handle
yes.
doesn't mean that that's going to make the shaft more vertical. It can, like Ricky
Yeah,
Fowler does
absolutely.
that, right? Or you have like even I think some of those, like Victor Hovland, you know, he doesn't really throw it out that hard, but he's kind of and you have to really shut the face to make that work, and you have to hit a cut. To really, the players that do it have to hit a cut, or they do hit cuts. If you're not using a tool that will explain what the wrists are doing, or what the shoulder's doing, or what the grip is doing, or
Yeah.
what the shaft is doing, if you don't have all those pieces of the puzzle, take the avatar off. Just track the grip and the markers. Period. Let's say our avatar sucks. It's the best avatar in golf, but let's just say
Say it
it's
doesn't
horrible.
exist.
Say it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I'm just using a stick figure. That's, you know, we're not like guessing on that. Like this is I'm tracking the middle of that grip with research grade accuracy.
Right.
And I am more than happy. I will get on a plane to anywhere to validate our marker tracking and our club tracking. And I think I would welcome that, because it would give me an opportunity to really explain our technology, like how good we are. You know, this
Yeah.
is freaking amazing. It's really hard to do what we do. So it's like, just because I lower it doesn't mean that it's going to go more horizontal. It does oftentimes, but there's no guarantee. There's no free ride.
There's
there.
no guarantees.
And
in
and
golf.
and I think that we have to have these kind of discussions, and we have to think through this before we have all these ridiculous wars on social media, where you have different technologies with different reference points, and it's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
One cool thing on that point, like pull up 2 pro swings or 2 amateur swings, but more pro swings because you're gonna see some consistency there of golfers that look and swing nothing alike and turn off the avatar and just watch the club movements. Very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar. Yeah. And you're like, okay, if the club moves that way, your body's working pretty good because that's the whole point.
Exactly.
Right. So it's, again, it's why having access to the club is so valuable in this system.
Yeah, I think, and then there's the whole markerless discussion, right? We've been approached by 13 markerless companies right now. Apple has this feature now in the phone where it has this LiDAR technology where it will basically very easily, it's very easy to make, not difficult, where you can, that's why there's so many companies trying to do it, where you can basically use your phone and it will outline your body, and you can train using AI, you can train that capture on where the joints should be. And then you can draw lines and make numbers off of that. So you're basically making a lot of assumptions of where the joints are, and you're using a single phone. And
that's the hurdle.
Okay, so it's affordable. We've had 10 companies come to us, 12, sorry, and say, hey, will you partner with us because we need your data to train our markerless system on how to be accurate. And we have not done that because it is too difficult. I mean, we can, if anybody can do it accurately, we can. We use, because of all the millions of golf swings that we have captured.
Millions of data points.
And we're not using our avatar, we're just using the raw data points, and we're tracking those markers more accurately than anybody in the world. So we have a lot of great data to throw at something like that. It's a consumer grade product, and there is a place in the world for it. And you know, we might jump into that fray at some point. We've been offered the opportunity many times. The challenge with markerless is that you need a lot of cameras to surround the player to be able to get all the rotational motion, the verticals. So you have the body's moving X, Y, Z, rotational up and down, left and right, and up and back and forth. So you have, I think that like the future of golf is going to be more along the lines of markerless, and I think you still need a lot of cameras to actually be reasonably accurate with that. And I think there's a future. I think it's going to be extremely hard. You're about to see people come out with club data now without markers, using a single phone. Hey, I've got the club path is 3 degrees. So, hey, look, maybe it's a $20 consumer app.
Yeah,
it's going to create more lessons for people because they're going to get more confused, but that is unbelievably difficult to track a golf club. And you can see maybe the motion and trace the motion of it, but there's no way you're getting shaft data, there's no way you're getting face data, there's no way you're getting reasonably accurate club data. And they'll say, maybe you'll get somebody that says, oh, well, the markerless said that the path was 2 degrees, but Gears said it was 3 degrees. Okay, well, what did the next swing say? Well, that one was 5 degrees and Gears said 3 degrees. Okay, well, then take another one. Well, what did that one say? Well, that one was 6 degrees and Gears said 3 degrees. So the deviation on those systems is going to be a lot. And the problem with that is that you're going to start thinking that the face to path is closed or that the path is left when it's really not. And that's very dangerous.
Yes.
So I think that it's going to be very hard ever to track the entire golf club, shaft, head, face mapping, without marker tracking. It's going to be very difficult for anybody to do that accurately. You run into physics problems at that point.
We've been approached not by 13 companies, but by a few of those companies wanting us to do for their products what we do in our videos with Gears, use Gears in our videos. And we've tested them side by side. Like the accuracy level there is such a difference in the accuracy level that as a company, as someone who's fought tooth and nail to learn the accuracy of how to measure a golf swing and all that, it's not something that we want to give up. It would be so valuable for us. We do 2,000-3,000 online lessons every year. To be able to use an app in an online lesson, it would make our jobs so much easier, but we're not willing to sacrifice the accuracy for ease of use.
Yep.
Everyone's got to make that decision themselves.
Sure.
But Markerless is certainly going to be around for a long time.
Yeah.
It's here.
That's where it's going. We'll eventually get to the point where we're tracking the avatar without markers. We're always going to have our marker system for people like you and people that really care about these tiny little data points.
Right.
But there is going to be, at some point, the technology will be able, the cameras are going to get faster, cheaper. We're going to be able to come up with ways to get pretty close to that. That single camera does some things, like maybe if you're face on, you might be able to get sway pretty good. You might be able to get some tilts pretty good, but the rotational is a real challenge at that point. So what good is showing sway if it doesn't give you an accurate turn number? That's my point.
Tilt the same way. Tilt and rotation.
Okay, so I got more tilt.
Whoa,
wait a second. Yeah, but what was the turn?
Right.
Because those two things are not, you can't separate those things when one affects the other. So now if it's saying, hey, I got this much tilt and this much turn and the turn's way off, but the tilt's okay, now you actually think that your body's doing something that it's not doing, and you're
working on something that's
not actually happening.
Yeah.
So look, I get it. I think it's a consumer grade product. It's super noisy. It's, at the PGA show you might see 10 companies with it, and but I think if I don't understand the point of 3D without a golf club, without being able to track the whole thing. That's my whole, I can't get my head around that. Like, why would I want to see what the body's doing and not see what the resultant club
is doing to the instrument? Yeah.
And I don't want to see it at impact. I'd like to see it impact, but I want to see how it's getting to impact. I want to see what's really happening. So I can't just use a launch monitor and a body-only system. I've got to tie those two things together. I've got to tie the club to the body, and I need to be able to track that club through the whole thing. The impact data is valuable,
right? Yep.
But I want to see the journey. I'm putting all these pieces of the puzzle together. I'm trying to simplify this game for my students. I don't want to guess.
Right here, we've got TrackMan, gears, force plates.
Absolutely.
We want to see
all of it.
All of it.
I need, the more data we have, the easier this game is to diagnose.
Yes.
Period. The game is improving because technology is getting better. The coaches are now teaching better. Coaches now are way better than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. The coaches now understand cause and effect way better.
Way better.
That is not because we got smarter, because the human being got smarter now.
Right.
It's because
we
have more
faster.
It's because we have more information now. So we have more information to make informed decisions. And I would just say the more data we have, the easier it is to diagnose. The more simple your job gets.
It's good to set the record straight and
Yes.
just explain what we don't do enough explaining.
So on that topic, many people will think that, well, I gave you your system because I need you guys to promote me.
Right.
You paid full price for your system. You're not paying me to be here. I'm not paying to be here. This is just two friends talking to each other. You've never called me and said, hey, I'm pimping your ride a lot. How about some cheddar? You've never asked that. I've never actually, all I've done is just given you this tool, new metrics and stuff, and said, here's what it is. And then you take that and you run with that. You're never calling me up and say, hey, what do you think of this, and this? You've done all the work yourself, dude, and you and Sean. And I just think it's really refreshing. I'm honored to know you. I'm honored to be friends with you and Sean. We're great friends, but really, you've done this all on your own. You've just paid full rate every year. You pay your license. You guys are like great customers, and I'm honored to be with you, and
We've learned.
I'm lucky to have you.
We've learned a ton from you. You've showed us how to use it.
Yeah.
We're blessed to be able to have access to great players.
Yep.
Like we wouldn't understand the swing as well if we were just looking at 25 handicappers. We wouldn't know what 25 handicappers do.
Yeah. I'm diamond medallion on Delta for like 5. I get diamond by like May.
Oh my
I'm
word.
traveling way too much.
I don't envy that.
We spend a lot of money getting data. And
Yes,
I strap
that's-
myself to an airplane because I'm trying to get data. Data is king, and I need good data, and I need a lot of it from the best players in the world, because we need to know what they do,
Yes.
why they do it, and we need to know what amateurs do and why they do it.
Yes.
And we need to help these amateurs get better. We need to help the tour players get better. And that's why we're here. We're just trying to make our players better and
That's the
figure
most
it out.
for a company. That's our most valuable asset is the data. That's why the main reason why we don't share names, because that's irrelevant.
It is irrelevant.
What are the
Straight
best
data.
doing? And it would help a lot in marketing. Hey, we worked with X, Y, and Z player this week. Come see us because of that. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
2 weeks
Yeah.
from now,
Yep.
a month from now.
It's true.
It's the data. What are these guys doing?
Yeah.
Why are they so good? And
It's valuable.
what would you want to know when you were playing? A little bit more about what better players are doing? I certainly would have.
I mean, there's just like, I don't know, dude, I can't even, like, I was not a good player. I was good enough to get through high school and play a little college golf, but
How much better could you have been with the access to what actually happens in the swing now?
I don't think I would have ever been a good player. I don't think I do well under pressure. I get really nervous. But I will say, like, I shoot under par quite a bit now. I never once shot under par in college in 3 years.
So at your peak, you shoot
I
better
am
scores now.
so much better now at 54 than I was at 20.
And not hitting balls
even close.
every day,
And I was
not
hitting balls
practice
every
every day.
freaking day. My body was good, and I freaking do anything. I hit it a long way, but I couldn't score. I understand these principles way better now. I mean, I've shot 64 a few times. I never thought in a million years I could do that. So I was like, well, what did I do right? Well, now I understand how things work, and I'm a good player. So I even my body doesn't move now. I've had 3 back surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
I have a knee replacement. I hurt every morning when I wake up. My back is freaking rock hard. And I think last week I played 3 times and I was like 10 under par for 3 rounds. And I played from the blue tees instead of the black tees. So, I mean, like, I can still putt and chip. I can hit it pretty straight. But I don't think I would have ever been great because I get too nervous. And I also think that spending as much time as I do with these tour players is that they basically are all psycho. Like, dude, I'm like, you got to wake up so early. You got to do this every week. You're like going back again and doing this tomorrow, and you're walking like 6 rounds a week, and you got to do that again and again. I'm like, what kind of, you must be so passionate about winning. You must care so much about this.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to be a little psycho.
You have to be wired differently.
You have to be wired different, similar in other sports. And you have to be super competitive without blowing a gasket. You have to be able to do it under pressure. You have to be able to,
And then do it again the
and
next
then you got to
week.
do it again the next week. I mean,
In a different city, on a different golf course.
I have so much respect for these guys. If you can net $1 playing this game, netting $1 is freaking hard.
The amount of good players that aren't quite good enough. Those players are so good.
And I think that, like, the difference between these good players and the good, really good players is that scoring at that 100 yards and in, that wedge play, that scrambling ability, the scoring mentality of, like, I'm not afraid to go low. They're not afraid, and they can scramble like crazy.
They're definitely not afraid.
Not afraid.
The skill is still getting it in the hole when you don't have your best stuff.
Yep.
That's the big separator. Thank you, brother.
All right, buddy.
This has been fun.
That was
Thanks
awesome.
it's like Christmas when you show
Yeah,
up.
that was
We
fun.
learned something new.
Yeah.
We've got new parameters to share with everybody. This is
Yeah.
going to be great.
Yep.
but just
Thanks,
excited to
bud.
keep it
You're
going.
the best.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.